Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Paul Curry. I'm the manager of the Urban Systems Unit at ICLEI Africa. And I'm really delighted that we are hosting this session, which is the African City Food Exchange Part 2, which is a city-to-city workshop on achieving sustainable food systems. And it comes part midway and as the culmination of a series of independent food dialogues that have been taking place to elevate the voices of cities in the UN Food System Summit that is going to be taking place later this year. Last week, we hosted a webinar to share reflections on what had been coming out of these dialogues and to present some of the initial themes that many cities have been voicing. And this workshop is here to provide the space for cities to learn and speak to each other, as most of the dialogues have either been between two cities in one country or just with stakeholders from one city. So welcome. This is workshop style, so the energy in the room is partly from us as your facilitators, but will also come from the inputs and the energy that you bring. So we welcome your active participation. If I can ask that to start, you introduce yourself in chat with your name, the city you're in, and the organization you're representing. That would be great. The agenda for today, I'm providing a brief welcome and opening. Our intention is to have a reflection on the overall UN Food Systems Summit independent dialogue process from our colleague Barbara Emanuel, who's been our liaison with FAO and guiding some of the journey as well. But also to hear some quick reflections, sort of a minute and a half from some of the city representatives who have been in the independent dialogues. The meat of the session is going to be in breakout sessions, where we're going to focus on three key topics and offer more opportunity to share your perspectives. This session is part of the African City Food Month, which is a campaign really to draw attention to the actions and activities that cities are undertaking to improve food systems. It is brought to you by ICLEI, African Centre for Cities, Ricolto, RUAF, the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, and the South African Urban Food and Farming Trust. And if you would like to partner on us for this session and for next year, please do reach out to Solofina with an email. We really would like to build momentum and to showcase the amazing work that's going on across the continent. So in terms of context, the aim of the independent dialogues that we've been running are to feed into the United Nations Food Systems Summit in September. Phase one was having engagements across 16 cities. Only 4 cities are remaining to have an independent dialogue. But dialogues have happened in Accra, Ghana, Antananarivo, Madagascar, Arusha, and Dodoma in Tanzania, Cape Town, South Africa, Entebbe, Uganda, Kisumu and Nairobi in Kenya, Kilimani in Mozambique, and Tamale in Ghana as well, Tunis in Tunisia. Phase 2 is where we are, which is about improving some co-learning from the different themes and ideas emerging from cities. And that's going to lead into the pre-summit, which is at the end of July, and the Food System Summit in September. And our aim with these programs is to build momentum and keep the momentum going, and trying to support action for improving food systems after these conversations have commenced. So please do introduce yourself in chat, name, city, and organization. The breakout sessions that we're going to run are on either food policy and governance, which will have interpretation in English, French, and Portuguese. So if you would prefer to speak in French and Portuguese, please choose this breakout room. The second breakout room is on partnerships and stakeholder engagement. And the third is on investment or intervention opportunities in urban food systems, where we're really going to speak about the what we want to do. So for us to have an easier time in doing breakout rooms, can you please rename yourself in Zoom to your name and then G1 for food policy and governance, your name in G2 for partnerships, and your name in G3 for investment or intervention opportunities. And the way you do this is by clicking at the bottom of your screen on the Participants tab, finding your name. It'll have a me in brackets next to it, clicking on your name and clicking the Rename tab that comes off that. So I'll remind you to do this before we go into breakouts again. But for now, I'd like to invite Barbara Emanuel, who's been an advisor and liaison with FAO throughout this process, and has extensive experience from time working with the City of Toronto, to reflect on her experience of what she's seeing in the independent dialogues in the African cities. So welcome, Barbara. Over to you.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Barbara Emanuel, and I'm recently retired as the manager of the Toronto Food Strategy. It's very early in the morning for me, so please excuse me. I'm just waking up, but it's a delight to be here. I bring greetings to you all from their Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. I'm not a staff person of the FAO, but I am working with them to support this dialogues process and to support the working group that's been established to bring together the voice of cities from all over the world and to try to amplify our collective experience and expertise from all over the world. And that's very much, I believe, what this whole process here on Rise Africa and the whole African dialogues. It's also mirrored by dialogues in many different parts of the world that the UN have invited people through independent dialogues and a series of global dialogues so that these voices and engagement from multiple stakeholders can be brought forward to the table. We started out in this UN process being a little bit concerned that the voice of cities was not really strongly there. And I would say that we have had some degree of success in demonstrating our collective expertise and experience on the ground, because as everybody here knows, cities are at the center of food systems transformation. So the FAO, together with GAIN, established a global working group to try to have a unified voice of cities and to get a recognition of that. And as Paul said, there's going to be a pre-summit session in a week or two. And we're glad to see that finally there is a space for cities at this pre-summit. Very much to do with our work on the ground all over the world and our advocacy to the UN to get this voice heard at the summit. So we're going to endeavor as best we can to bring the findings and the information that's come from all these dialogues. What's very striking to me, having sat in on a number of the dialogues, both from here and from other jurisdictions all over the world, is that there are some very common issues that we all experience, being the level of government closest to the people on the ground. Many of us found ourselves in unique situations with the global emergencies, in particular the pandemic, where we've all had to respond, often just in real time, to getting good food out to our local populations. there's a struggle in different jurisdictions about collaborating with national governments. In some places, this has been a good process of vertical integration, if you like, with cities and national governments speaking with one voice and working together. In other places, us cities have had to operate alone, and we need to support each other, to mentor each other, to advocate for the required resources that we need, the capacity building. And I think that we're well along the way in this journey. So I congratulate ICLE, I congratulate all of you participating in this session, because I think our voices are starting to be heard. I think I emphasize starting, I don't think we're there. But we're going to do whatever we can to feed in what we hear today, what we've heard from the individual dialogues from individual cities, and to try to bring this voice loud and clear, both to the global working group and to the UN summit. So I look forward to your deliberations today, and I'm going to be listening with great interest. And thanks for everybody for joining and participating here. And great work from ICLE to put this together. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Barbara, and for the insights as we go. As Barbara's mentioned, every dialogue has a reporting function that gets fed into the dialogues, and so we're working hard to make sure that everything that is shared in these conversations makes its way into these processes. So please do ensure that you're sharing your perspective so that we can ensure this feeds in to the wider conversation going on. So with that, before we go into breakout rooms, I'd like to invite Solofina to facilitate a session where we hear very briefly from a number of the different dialogues going on that have taken place, and just to get a taste of some of the ideas that are emerging. Solofina.
Thank you very much, Paul, for that. And I'm sure most of you have seen our faces continuously in the different dialogues that we've been holding. We've been having this back and forth communication. We've been sharing outcomes. We've been sharing information, and it's great to see that most of you are back here. And it's good to know that there's interest. It's good to know that there's the appetite to learn from other cities, from what other cities are, and that other cities are also able to share from what some of the outcomes or some of the processes that they're dealing with across their food system, but then also during the summit process. And when we say that we were convening some of the dialogues, I just want to add that this was not a process that we did on our own. For every city that we're engaging with, from Tamale to Accra to Nairobi to Kisumu, down to Cape Town, to Antananarivo to Kilimani, one thing that we emphasized was to always get in touch with local partners, people that are engaging with the food system at different level. Get in touch with the municipal government, people that are engaging with it with another lens, the lens of service delivery. So that in a way, when we are holding a dialogue, we have the participation, but then also the recognition of different participants on the ground of some of the issues that are being talked about. So we, as Paul noted, we held the dialogues in 12 cities, and I just want to highlight some of the partners that we did work with in trying to tease out some of the outcomes and trying to understand what are the opportunities or the challenges that different cities are dealing with. So we did work with different partners like UNEP, like UN Habitat, with RUAP, Ricolto. We worked with also municipalities, the city of Cape Town. We worked with the Tamale Metropolitan Assembly, Accra Metropolitan Assembly. So there's also the Netherlands Food Partnership in Accra as well, Meals for NCDs. So there are all these organizations that are already doing work on ground that wanted to get involved, but then to also guide the process and also share some of the work that they're doing. And later on, after we've heard from some of the city participants, I will share the initial outcomes from the whole process. and how we're able to extract these key, some of these key messages to guide today's discussion. So I'd like to briefly call upon Lorraine. So Lorraine was from the Kisumu Dialogue and is really intricately working with the Flag Steering Committee in trying to work around issues of food governance in Kisumu, and also working with different stakeholders there. So Kisumu, please do share some of the outcomes from the Kisumu Dialogue, but then also some of the work that Kisumu has been engaged in before, but then also continuing to build upon post the dialogues. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you. Thank you, Solofina, and thank you everyone else for having me. She has introduced me as Lorraine, and yes, I am Lorraine from Kisumu County here in Kenya. Okay, I'll just briefly share some of the things that are happening in Kisumu County as regards to food systems. First, for a very long time, Kisumu has not been a producing county. We have relied heavily on food imports from other counties and other nations, and this has had both a positive and more a negative impact on us as a county. And realizing this through the Department of Agriculture, Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, the government, the county government has been putting in place strategies and applying different approaches just to ensure that, one, Kisumu realizes food security, and number two, that the food in Kisumu is secure. So there are different kinds of approaches that have been put in place. There are grades that have been put in place. Kisumu is largely known for fish. Actually, when you're talking Kisumu, you'd be thinking about fish, but it is amazing that fish in Kisumu is expensive. And if you went to other counties, it is cheaper. So one of the things county government of Kisumu has done is to revamp and provide an enabling environment for the fisher folks. One, not just those people who are getting fish from the lake, but now we are seeing more that those who are investing in fish ponds, in fingerlings, are getting support from different organizations. And at this point, probably allow me to mention that one of the organizations that the county government of Kisumu has partnered with to ensure that Kisumu becomes food secure is FAO. We have also, we are large also on rice farming, and a lot of interventions have been put there to ensure that the sector is revamped, there is ready market, there is value addition in terms of rice farming. So let me then measure on what Kisumu County has done with FAO. At the onset of the pandemic, Kisumu was largely affected because, like I said, we rely on food imports. And so what was done, a survey was done, a baseline survey was actually done. And one of the things that FAO worked together with the Department of Agriculture was to bring interventions and innovations that can actually boost food, because people were then lacking food. You cannot go, the local traders who are used to probably selling food in the market from other areas were not even able to afford. So one of the things that FAO did together with the county was to bring, to set aside time, not just to bring the technology, but to train people on how they can be able to have their own food, grow their own food at their own doorstep, ensure that the food is safe, avoid a lot of chemicals. So we had kitchen gardens as one of the main agenda, one of the main areas that then FAO concentrated on. And here we had farmers trained to grow their own kitchen gardens. And it's amazing how communities are now coming up to request for the technologies, and they're applying the technologies. So most people are now not depending on their greens to come from other counties, but they're actually growing they're actually growing their greens. All right. Okay, let me just okay, I'm sorry, I'm organizing my stuff here. Okay, so a baseline survey was done, and the survey was conducted in several sub-counties. In Kisumu County, we have 7 sub-counties, and we had a total of 63 farmers that have been trained in different areas, not just to trained on growing food, but actually safe nutrition, waste management, business skills, and entrepreneurship, just to ensure that producers are doing what they're supposed to do properly, and it is making a difference. Then FAO also came up with a program whereby different stakeholders involved in value chain addition in different products are funded. Those that are dealing with the chicken value chain, the dairy, those who are in the dairy industry, and those that are actually growing chicken gardens have gotten grants this year, largely on machinery, yes, but also other technological interventions have also been put in place. And apart from that, Kisumu County has been able to participate in independent food system dialogues. There was one we had in the month of November. This was together with the United Nations that brought different stakeholders together just to dialogue and forge a way forward. One of the things that Kisumu is keen on is having a food policy that incorporates even how waste is disposed. The policy is in progress in terms of different stakeholders have been brought on board. They have given their views or what they would think would best suit to be considered or to be given priority when it comes to us having a food policy. There's a feel that if we have that food policy, then it will change a lot in the big picture on how food is produced, how it is managed, and how waste is actually disposed within the county. We were part of the dialogue that had been organized by ICLE for the local government sustainability. Kisumu participated in this. Those were dialogues, and as a county, we are still looking for ways to improve resilience of Kisumu food systems. Okay, let me just say 1, 2, and then I'll be done.
Sorry, Lorraine, maybe a few more minutes to wrap up so that we can also invite some other cities to share as well. Thank you.
Yeah, just a few. So what participants were able to unpack during our dialogue were ways in which the governance framework of the city's food system could be improved, and how best the local food agribusiness could be supported to drive growth of the local economy. And this was actually relayed to the governor by the Minister of Agriculture. And we are hoping that in the next financial year, we will see a budget allocated for this, and then Kisumu can go ahead and grow towards having food security. Let me stop at that.
Well, thanks, Lorraine, for that. And you're going to share more in the G2 breakout room that will be talking about participation and stakeholder engagement. And one thing that stood out really for the Kisumu process, even in the organization of the dialogue, was how the Kisumu County is working so closely with the flag steering committee. So this is a committee of different stakeholders that are working in food or across the food value chain, from private businesses to academia, and the way they're working together, it's so beneficial and mutually exclusive in that they're able to support each other in terms of understanding what's happening in the in the field along the food value chain, but then also advising the city, supporting the different initiatives that members of the council are undertaking. So to me, I felt this was quite an interesting example of how the city is really working closely with different stakeholders or with different initiatives already happening within the city to support them to also grow such initiatives. And Lorraine will share more on this in the G2 breakout room. And if you'd like to know more, how cities can collaborate with other stakeholders across the food value chain or within the food system, please join G2, and then you can interact more with Lorraine about this. So, and I think another also interesting thing from Kisumu was other cities are facing issues around food production. But what you noted for Kisumu is that fish is being produced, but it's actually being exported, to where it can get a better price. So really, how do we deal with these dynamics in cities? You're facing a shortage of food, but then the food that is available is being taken out of the city.
Yeah.
So these are issues that we can go back and forth with, and we do not have the answers as ourselves, but there are people here that do have some of the answers or that can help us look at this issue in a different way. So thank you very much for sharing. And so during today's, I can see that our Mayor Manuel Araújo is here, and we did organize the first independent dialogue in Kilimane. And Kilimane's focus was really on investment opportunities across, in the urban food system. And this is a question a lot of cities have been asking, where do we find the financing? Or these are some of the opportunities we're seeing in cities. How can we frame them to be able to attract the right funding? So we did organize the dialogue around that to try and tease out the opportunities in Kilimane's food system, but then also the challenges the city is facing. And I think the mayor did raise such strong points, trying to call out to different stakeholders, if there are people with resources, people that can build the capacity, Kilimane is ready to collaborate with you at different levels. Maybe Mayor can help us to reflect on the Kilimane dialogue process. Sorry, Mayor Manuel, are you with us? Okay, so when he joins us, we'll pick up on that conversation. So on my side, I also want to share some of the key outcomes from the different cities, and I want to present it in a very raw way in which our team is trying to look at some of the outcomes, but then also some of the overarching themes that are coming out from the dialogues. So allow me to share my screen and to take you through some of the processes that we're going through in trying to analyze the outcomes from the dialogues and trying to understand what exactly our city is saying, or what are those overarching themes that are coming out across the different cities. And then this will also give you an idea of why we are choosing some of the topics to share on today. Topics around policy and governance, topics around investment opportunities in the urban food system, but then also issues around stakeholder participation and engagement, as these are the key things that we're running through the different discussions and the dialogues. And they may seemingly be concepts that may seem like they're easy to get to, but they're also one of those critical that need to be set up in a very comprehensive and integrated way to be able to bring about the changes that we need in the food system. So allow me to share my screen, and then we can go through some of these outcomes that we've been sharing. Okay, so as I noted, we've conducted the dialogues in 12 cities so far, and then what I'll do is take you through some of these key issues coming out from the different cities, and then bring you to the process that we're going through right now of looking at some of these key outcomes from the cities. So I'll start. You can see someone has raised a hand, but I'll get to you as soon as we're finished, and then we can ask some questions around some of these outcomes that we're seeing. And then this will lead us nicely into the breakout rooms once we have a bit of background on what is happening. So I'll start with Nairobi City. And here we're seeing that, and this concern has been ringing out through most of the cities, that a lot of the food is sourced out of the city. And so there's need to intensify the food production, but then also improve the city and the region linkages. And importantly, they need to take stock of the urban food system, and which is critical to improving linkages, as well as understanding who is part of the food value chain. And then also there was a recognition that civil society can play a key role in linking, for example, food system programs and the marginalized, and how this can be better incorporated into the food system. Then we're looking at Tamale as well, issues around cultural institutions. They have the power to play a key role in access to land, as well as influencing ways of life and cultures around food. And then I think also one important thing was around empowering civil society, embarking on the journey for urban food governance, starting with taking stock. So we saw this also in Nairobi as well, taking stock of the food system, but then also crafting policies. So for Tamale, it's more of the beginning stages of starting to craft policies around urban food governance, and also trying to understand what their food system looks like. And then the emphasis of indigenous food, as well as treating food system actors as heterogeneous in policy formulation and planning. So here we're seeing issues around food policy actors coming in to be part of the food system, but then also the start of the journey to food system governance. Then for Accra, there's also a focus on the indigenous food within the city, intensifying urban food production. Then also interesting, those issues around managing organic waste within the city and how this can be transformed and used in other processes across the food value chain, but then also other complementary sectors, for example, using some of this waste for energy generation, among other things. And one key thing that also kept ringing in most of the dialogues is issues around food sensitive urban planning.
Sorry, Solofina.
Yes, Paul?
The French is not coming through the French channel. Can we just pause for a moment to ensure that Dominique is able to fix that? Sorry for the interruption. But
No,
our French colleagues are missing out.
Okay, just one moment. Should I add Dominique again as an interpreter?
Dominique, are you hearing us? Or perhaps, Jess, you can confer and let us know.
All right, and sorry, is the interpretation coming through? I can see that Dominique, yes, you're hearing us. And translation is on. Can you hear the French translation on your side?
It isn't coming through the French channel.
Yeah. Okay, just one moment.
It might be that they both on, there's two people on French.
Okay, I'm trying to add Dominique again. Sorry about the interruption. Sorry, how is that? Is it, are you getting the French translation coming through?
It's not coming through, and Dominique, it seems maybe your mic is connected, but the sound isn't coming through on your side.
So is it possible for Dominique to maybe rejoin?
Yes, please.
Please. Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll give Dominique a minute to rejoin, and then in the meantime, I'll keep sharing my screen so that you can also have a chance to go through some of the outcomes, that are coming through from the cities.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you.
This is very strange. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. I didn't touch or do anything.
Okay. Let me add you as an
Can you
interpreter.
assign me again? Yeah.
Sure.
That's strange. Was that because of the recording maybe, or I don't know.
I'm sure these things happen.
Again, how is that on your side? Sure. And can you hear the French translation?
Oui, merci bien.
Yes. Sure. Okay. All right. Sorry about that interruption, but we really want to make sure that everyone is on board and they can benefit from some of the outcomes that we're sharing. So I'll continue with the presentation, and then hopefully we can have a brief Q&A about that before we go into the breakout rooms. Okay, and so I'll just continue briefly to Accra, and I think some of the emphasis from the interaction with the mayor was issues around stressing the need for collaboration with different actors such as FAO on the practical ways of governing food, of implementing actions around food. And then also raised the need for implementation support to the city and stakeholders, such as through financing mechanisms and capacity building. Then Entebbe in Uganda, I think one thing they noted was the limited access to land as well as the lake resources, because Entebbe is a peninsula on Lake Victoria. And if people cannot access the land and the lake to be able to benefit from the resources, then that raises a question of how are they able to produce the food or to be able to do the fishing from the lake to supply food locally. And then food is sourced out of the city, like most of the cities that were engaged in the dialogue. So this means that this affects the price of the food, but then also it affects the access to some of the food that is nutritious, as it is more expensive. And then I think for Entebbe, they noted that there's a potential for Entebbe to be a transportation hub. And what does this mean for food? It means that food can easily move from other cities to Entebbe, but then Entebbe can also be a food hub, by also supporting other cities that may have a shortage of food. Once transportation is sorted, and then in a way it supports the movement of food, it supports the movement of people to be able to access some of the food that is produced either out or within the city. And then Antananarivo also stressed the need for entrepreneurship promotion, issues around agroforestry and diversification, and then coordination and governance, while looking at the city region food system strategy as one of the ways to improve coordination and governance. And then Kigali and Rulindo in East Africa, issues around strengthening regional linkages to achieve resilience, promoting collaborative food system, and then focusing on implementation and evaluation. They noted that there's a lot of good policies within the city, but issues around implementation of these policies, and people are not empowered to understand or even implement some of the policies that are being drafted. I think for Cape Town, also important, it was issues around strengthening relationships and partnerships between food system actors, as well as resource and finance departments with food-related mandates. So actually putting the money where actions around food are being planned around or they're being implemented. And then the issue of food sensitive urban planning comes up again. And I think if if there's people within our discussion rooms that can speak to this in the breakout rooms. This is one thing that kept ringing in all the dialogues. What is food sensitive urban planning, and how can cities plan with food in mind? Then Arusha and Dodoma. So this was one of our hybrid dialogues where we had participants within the city, but then also those that attended virtually. So issues around political will on food mandates, the need for evidence-based actions, and this talks about taking stock of the food system, a recognition of the integrated nature of food, so meaning that food touches upon other sectors of the economy, sectors such as transport, water, land. So all these are in one way or another connected to the food system. And therefore, how can we get multiple actors involved in planning around food security by tapping into their different mandates that may not be directly related to food? And then also the issue around promoting indigenous food also comes through strongly. And we see this also in Accra as well. So we need to almost invest or to increase the awareness around the nutritional value of our indigenous foods. And then of course, strengthening rural-urban linkages, as well as issues around food safety. This was, I think some of the work that we've done in Arusha, issues around food safety have been raised. How can we support cities to be able to promote safe food? How can we empower different actors in markets, market traders, as well as people that work in abattoirs or in food growing, to be able to produce food that is safe for consumption within the city? Then also Kisumu, issues around emergency food provision were brought up, and this was mainly due to the pandemic. We need to strengthen the collaborative food system governance. I think this is coming up in all the different cities. And then issues around making the food system efficient so that we minimize loss and waste, and also we're able to handle waste management. Then school feeding programs are also recognized as important in Kisumu. And then the issue that most of the policies are at national level, but there's need to start governing food at a local level, looking at city level policies around food management. So these are some of the key issues that were coming out in cities. And for us, as we were looking at ways in which we can synthesize these messages, these outcomes, we thought in ways, these are some of the key things coming out. Issues around policy and governance, local level food policies. In some instances, they do not exist, but in other incidences, they are not being implemented, or they've not been evaluated, or they've not been sort of crafted in a way that is beneficial for local level implementation. Then issues around reviewing, evaluation, and continuous updates of policies. And then, of course, importantly, multi-sector coordination. How do we ensure that the food mandate is reflected in all these different local level mandates? Then issues around stakeholder partnerships. So you can see that because some of these issues were ringing out strongly, we thought that we'd have specific discussions around this. So issues around stakeholder partnerships. How can cities collaborate better with technical partners through either formal or informal channels? And this can be for data collection, for research, for identifying existing structures, and leveraging the capacities that are within the city. And I think this recognizes the city may not necessarily have all the solutions, but there are people within the cities that have the solutions to support the city in different ways. And then issues around the power of different stakeholders, such as traditional leaders, civil society, and different partners. And then issues around resourced and inclusive multi-stakeholder platforms for change. We can have all these multi-stakeholder platforms, but they have to be empowered to be able to bring about change. So how do we go about this? Who can we collaborate with to make sure that civil societies or different actors, they could be NGOs, they could be researchers, they are empowered to be able to carry out their mandate, but then also hold the cities accountable to what they're supposed to do. Then we also noted areas of intervention or improvement, or we could simply say areas for investment. This transport infrastructure was brought out, market infrastructure, then also food loss and waste management needs to be looked at more comprehensively. And then issues for energy for markets, energy for households is also quite important. And then also intensifying urban food production. And I think with this intensifying urban food production, it came out strongly in different cities that cities cannot necessarily rely for the bulk of their food to be accessed from out of their boundaries, or how can they collaborate better to ensure that in case of any shocks, like we saw with the COVID regulations and lockdown, how can the city be able to provide its own food without disruption of supply? And I think also looking at enablers for transformation, innovative finance was spoke about, especially for small scale actors within the city. And this can be through cooperative and credit societies, strengthening tools like the mobile money platforms, and financing large scale infrastructure as well. Then inclusive and food sensitive urban planning, you saw this coming through strongly across the different dialogues, issues around data management and taking stock of the food system, and then also capacity building. I think this was said over and over again, capacity building across the food system, across the value chain, looking at city officials, looking at producers, looking at market traders, anyone that contributes to the food system. There's need for specific capacity building to be able to strengthen the role they play in the food system. So these are some of the key outcomes that we're seeing from the different cities, but then also as a collective across the different cities. So I'll stop sharing here, but if you do have any questions around this, around some of what I've presented about, please do feel free to put these questions in the chat or raise your hand and ask a question. A question or two is welcome. Thank you. Am I seeing any questions coming through? Or everyone just wants to go to the breakout rooms and start with the discussions already? Maybe if there's something that I didn't capture very well for your city that you felt, was quite a strong point, what could this be that you think was specific to your city that we could add on to some of the outcomes? Ivy, I do remember you were in the Accra Dialogue. Welcome. It's good to see you again. Have I presented Accra fairly?
Thank you. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right, so we'll close this session here for now, but then the discussions are going to go into the breakout rooms. So please do rename yourselves according to the 3 breakout rooms. If you're interested in policy and governance, you want to learn from from Ouagadougou City as well as Antananarivo. Please rename yourself. At the end of your name, add G1. If you want to know more about partnerships and stakeholder engagements from the city of Cape Town, please do rename yourself at the end with G2. And then for G3, which is investment or intervention opportunities in urban food systems, please do rename yourself at the end with G3. So here we'll be hearing from Ricolto, but then also I'll be presenting on how cities can better sort of frame their programs to attract better financing prospects. So we'll give this a few minutes, and then we'll for people to rename yourself, then we can do the breakout rooms.
I see a few things have come in through the chat. Just a reminder to rename yourself. You click on the participants button, which is at the bottom of your screen. Find yourself and click on your name and click the rename button, and you can put your name and then G1, G2, G3 afterwards. But I know our colleagues will look at the chat as well and make sure that you're in the right room.
So, by way of introduction, my name is Daniel Adeni. I'm with ICLEI Africa. I also belong to the food team at ICLEI Africa, and it's my pleasure to be the moderator of this session. And without further ado, maybe you can just post, because I think we are like 14 or 20 in this group. So you can post, you can introduce yourself in the chat box so that we can get going. The way we are going to do this today is that we are going to listen to 2 presentations, one from Antananarivo basically just contextualize what food systems and governance, food system governance look like in Antananarivo, and one from Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. And I would like to invite our speakers to take the floor now. I can see that Scarlett is already here with us. And so I think Scarlett will go first. Scarlett Zongo, she is from the city of Ouagadougou. And so you can speak to what is being done in the city of Ouagadougou in terms of food policy, in terms of food system governance, and how it's been done. And I hope that our other members here can learn from it. If you have questions based on what you hear Scarlett talk about, you can just note them down. And we're going to have a round of questions for our speakers, and then before we dive into some other questions, and so that we can learn from each other. We have said it's a learning exchange, so we want to learn from each other. I believe we'll be able to do so. So Scarlett, over to you. Let's hear from you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello everyone, I'm Scarlett Zongo, Technical Advisor to the Mayor of Ouagadougou regarding environmental and sustainable development issues, and also the focal point of the Milan Pact for the city of Ouagadougou. As you may know, in February of this year, the city of Ouagadougou hosted the 4th edition of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. Sorry, I was about to say it in French. It's MUFPP in Africa, and following which the participating cities signed the Ouagadougou Declaration. I can send it to you if you want. And that declaration engages mayors to commit to plan, implement, and advocate for better urban food policies in their cities. We have also been elected as a member of the steering committee of the Milan Pact, and we represent the Africa region along with Antananarivo. Hosting this edition of the Milan Pact was very important for us because it enabled us to move the line within the city council itself, but also with the stakeholders of central government, which intervene in one way or another in urban agriculture and food system. In Ouagadougou, we have an area of 1,065 hectares that goes around the city and called the Green Belt because it was planned in the 1970s to serve as a green lung for our Sahaelian city. So
Hello, Scarlett. Is it from my hand? I can't hear Scarlett again. Hi, Scarlett.
I can't hear her.
Oh, okay. I think she dropped off. We'll see if she'll join us back very soon. We hope she'll be able to do that. So, yeah, I think she's back with us. Scarlett.
yes.
You're welcome back.
Well,
is
hello?
it possible to ask her to switch off her video?
Maybe you can switch off your. Maybe you can switch off your video.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Can you switch off your video? Your video. Can you switch off your video because of bandwidth? To save bandwidth.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm saying, can you switch off your video so that in order to save bandwidth? Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should do that too. Yeah. So please, Scarlett, you were talking. You can go on. You were talking about the green belt.
Yes. So the green belt is 1,065 hectares and goes around the city. And it was planned in the 1970s to serve as a green lung for the city. But due to lack of urban planning, the space is being colonized by anarchic installation of all kinds. But since 2018, the city of Ouagadougou has started to reclaim this space with a project, agroforestry rehabilitation project, and 70% of our efforts in terms of food action and policies focuses on this green belt with a 4-point vision, which are to locally produce quality food, to rehabilitate the green belt, to recycle organic waste, which represent more than 25% of the city's waste, and to generate income and jobs for young people and women. In terms of food policies implemented or ongoing, there are the inventory of 37 million packed actions under 6 categories regarding governance, sustainable diet and nutrition, social and economic equity, food production, food supply and distribution, and food waste. That assessment enabled us to list all the initiatives in progress and to reinforce them. Also, there is a gradual establishment of a new structure in charge of urban agriculture within the city hall. And also we are actively advocating with the Ministry of Water, Ministry of Agriculture, Urban Planning and Finance in order to make the green belt a growth pole for green economy. We are sharing experiences with, there is a new community of municipality. It's called the Grand Ouaga, Greater Ouagadougou. And we are sharing experiences with them in order to be the leader in terms of food policy, so that other municipalities can learn from us. The town hall recently received support from European Union for establishing an urban information system, which will be used, among other things, to collect data on food systems in Greater Ouagadougou. Also, there are several projects that have been announced to start this year, including the Greater Ouaga Metropolitan Governance Support Project that will cost approximately 5 million euros, which will help securing the green belt space and rehabilitate 100 hectares for urban agriculture. So basically, that's what I can say regarding policies. I can add, if I can add something, it will be that regarding stakeholders engagement, we have a strong support from our technical and financial partners, such as European Union and other NGOs. But there is probably a problem upcoming because central government, because of central government, they have seen what we are doing on the green belt, and there can be some problems of coordination of actions if there is no consultation between the city and all the parties involved. So in short, that's what I can say regarding Ouagadougou. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mute myself. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yes, we can hear you.
thanks, Scarlett, for that reflection about what the city of Ouagadougou is doing. Particularly, I mean, you've raised some pertinent issues, and I think we are going to revisit that. I will also come back to you in terms of issues of coordination, and especially multi-level governance, in terms of what do you think the solution is going to be in terms of coordinating with the central government and ensuring that whatever policies is being implemented by the city is in alignment with what you are doing and what the central government is doing. We are going to revisit your discussion. Maybe I should leave the floor for Tokiana from Antananarivo to reflect on what is going on in Antananarivo. And then we are going to, so if you have questions for Scarlett, I want to urge you to note it down, and we are going to revisit that. But I want also, first of all, listen to Tokiana from Antananarivo to reflect on the city's experience in governing the food system and in terms of food policy also for the city of Antananarivo. Over to you, Tokiana. I hope you are still on the call.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for introducing me. First of all, I would like to apologize in case my network is not very stable. So I will try to speak as fast as possible, as long as my connection is on, because I don't know if it will drop in the middle of a presentation. So as much as Scarlett discussed, like Antananarivo also is part of city signatory of Milan Pact. So basically in Antananarivo, from 2020 of January, the new mayor of Antananarivo tried to focus more on the establishment of food policy in this agenda. And part of that is the elaboration of a new department, which is the market department, who are in charge of regulation of the municipal market in the city, and also the setting up of a new sub-department of urban agriculture, which is focusing on the urban agriculture project of the city. Also, there is another project with FAO Madagascar, which is the city region food system. And recently in June, the city have signed a letter of intent of Green City Initiative, which is led by the FAO HQ in Rome. But in part with that, the city of Antananarivo also is a member of the steering committee of Milan Pact. Now I would like to go over activities of urban agriculture service in Antananarivo. Basically, the city have tried to elaborate like 9 pilot projects of school gardens within the city limits. Right now, there is 94 schools, like primary schools in Antananarivo, but we started the pilot project with only 9 projects for now because of financial availability and resources. We cannot go to all of 94 schools, but we are focusing on the 9 pilot projects for now. And there are also some vegetable gardens in our social center who are taking care of vulnerable people who are living in the city dwellers within the city limits. There is also technical support for the centers who are taking care of orphans within Antananarivo. And another important project for the city is the establishment of a mobile phone application, which is called iCultivate, And this is financed by the German NGO. And right now, the city is also focusing on the city region food system with FAO to, to fight the climate change within the city limit. And this city region food system is composed of 3 components. The first one is the multi-stakeholders engagement and multi-level governance. Second one is the comprehensive climate risk assessment in the Antananarivo and the suburban area, which is close to the city. Number 3 is the development of a risk mitigation strategy for the capital city. And the last one is the capacity development of vulnerable stakeholders for climate resilient practices. As I mentioned in my beginning of a presentation, the city have signed the Green City initiative by the FAO, and we are in the middle of the process right now. So I will focus more on that in the upcoming months of the project. So I think that is all for Antananarivo right now in regards of governance and city food system in the Antananarivo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tokiana, for that. So I'd like to then now call on our colleagues here, people on the call in this breakout room for questions for Scarlett or Tokiana. I think we are ready to entertain questions for them. Anyone with questions for Scarlett or Tokiana? You can just go for it, you can raise your hand. Check from the... I can see that we have Kimera Henry from Kampala, Kampala Consumer Center. We have Benedict Isao from Nairobi. If I may ask everyone to please, so that in order to make our conversation a seamless process, if you can just type in the chat box, put your name there and the city you are in, so that I can follow the conversation, and then maybe I can ask you about issues or food system governance issues in your city, or how food policy, or what food policies are being implemented in your city, or whether the absence of these and what you feel that we can learn from what Tokiana or Scarlett has alluded to. I can see that Kimera Henry has raised his hand. Kimera, you can go for it.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and I would like to thank our colleagues who have just shared with us the initiatives that they have in their cities. I would like just to make a general comment that the initiatives are commendable, and given the element of sustainability entailed, they are worth replicating in other aspects. The green belt or the green zones that have been shared, and other policies, the aspects of partnerships are very key in helping to implement some of the aspects like the green belts that have been mentioned, to have the green that can facilitate the ecosystems. And what I liked out of the partnerships is how do we position our cities for those partnerships, and these partnerships are put in such a way that they are sustainable and bringing in all different stakeholders in such a manner that they cross-fertilize policy, bring in governance issues, then they roll down to implementers like regulators and farmers, markets, and so all the people in the value chain, but ending up with the consumers in that they receive safe food and they do not lose and waste it. So to me, those are some of the things that I've found that are very key, and we need to see to it that we can replicate them in our cities. And the green belt will not only benefit the urban dwellers, but even the catchment areas that will be in the ecosystem, the benefits of clean air, the benefits of foods, the leftovers that will come, and not as in bad, but the surplus can also come from the urban to the rural areas or the semi-urban areas that are being supplying the urban areas. So I find them, those are good aspects. They will have the back and forth positive implications. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henry, for that. I think Henry has a very important question, and I'm going to throw it to our presenters, especially because I feel they have emphasized partnerships also. And so, Scarlett, I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to pose this question to you, and based on your experience of what is going on or what you have done so far in Ouagadougou, maybe you have something to say about it. So, Chimera, Henry was basically asking the question that how do we position our cities for partnerships in such a way that they are sustainable? I mean, you reflected that you have been engaging with different stakeholders through probably the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact and some other stakeholders. And you even said that, I think you alluded to the fact that maybe the central government is getting, I don't know, jealous in quotes of what you guys are doing in Ouagadougou. So in terms of partnership, in terms of how you position the cities to be able to engage with partners, to bring things on board, good policies on board, and to govern the food system together. What are your reflections about that, how we can do that?
Okay, thank you for the question. The key for us was to do a pilot project, because that pilot project helped us to come up with metrics, and we used those metrics to attract partnerships and investment. So at the current moment, we know we have metrics on everything that relates to urban agriculture on the green belt. We know how much it costs to arrange like 1 hectare for urban agriculture. We know how many jobs are created per hectare, how many money can be gained per year per hectares. So it's important to come up with those metrics to be able to say, hey, we are doing something great in this area. Come and support us.
Thank you. I guess from what you have said, what I can take away and which we can learn from is that we kind of, I mean, and the way you have highlighted the matrix that you do, it's like a form of situation analysis. Like, okay, you do a form of situation analysis for the food system in your city. And then with this kind of analysis, you are able to position your city to engage further with partners and say, hey, let us collaborate to move our food system forward. I think it's a good one. So for our cities, situation analysis in form of matrix can be helpful to know what we can do to move in terms of food governance and policies that can transform our food system. If I may ask the same question to Tokiana. Henry asked the question, how do we position our cities for partnerships, such as in such a way that even this partnership are sustainable? What's your reflection about that, Tokiana, from what you have, from your experience and what you have talked about today?
Thank you very much for the question. I would like to focus and mention that for Antananarivo, for example, it is important that the city have financial and technical partners like ICLE Africa or like the Milan Pact Secretariat, who provide assistance to the city in terms of food system policy, because for us especially prior the Milan Pact we didn't really have like formal engagement with other cities in terms of food policy, because we did not have the opportunity to be open with other cities prior the Milan Pact in 2019. So I would like to point that for cities, especially like in the African cities, there is a lot of opportunity to be shared between the cities, because it enables the city to have more insight of what's going on in other cities, rather than just do their own work without any knowledge of lessons from other cities. So I would like to point that it is important to us to receive technical and financial assistance from big partners like ICLE or other partners in Africa. For example, in Africa, there is ACRA and other NGOs that are focusing on giving assistance to cities to develop more strategy and better better opportunity for the city to be more sustainable in their projects. So I think that's all for now.
Thanks so much, Tokiana, for that. So I think he has emphasized the importance of partners, financial and technical partners that you can bring on board in order to, because when we say you want to develop a food policy for a city, you need technical resources. Sometimes the technical resource may not be located within the city. And so how do you improvise to ensure that you make those kind of technical resources available? So you can do that through partnership with United Nations organizations such as FAO, with international organizations also such as ICLE Africa, such as the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. Thanks very much for that. I believe we are also learning from that. I don't know if I want to entertain questions for our two speakers, or if there's any comment also that you want to make in terms of any of the things we have discussed before I begin to also dive into some other questions. Our mayor is also here, Mayor from Kulimani, Mayor Manuel. Do you want to reflect on the question of how we position our cities for partnerships so that they are sustainable? I mean, when we talk about developing policies and things like that, we need technical resources. We need financial resources to even be able to do some situation analysis and things like that. How then do we go about this, making sure these resources are available for development of these policies? Mayor Manuel? Okay, may I call on Maggie? Maggie Martin for contribution to this.
What I would say is that as much as we want to do the partnership in terms of developing our food systems, as much as we require the technical and the resources for the same, we also need to strive hard and work hard to ensure that at least one of the cities succeeds, so that it can be a model for the others to learn and to see the achievements or the roadmap that the city has maybe followed to reach the point that they have reached. And then maybe from there, other cities will be able to borrow from that and also incorporate other ways that have been used by other cities to maybe achieve the food systems in their own cities. And we also need, as we do the policies and in our cities, we need to maybe share.
Maggie? Hello, Maggie. Hello, Maggie. Maggie, are you still with us? I think, Maggie, we can't hear you anymore. Maggie, if you can unmute, sir, so that we can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, you can continue.
Okay. I was saying that we need to share a lot of information as we we develop our policies, so that whatever maybe could be succeeding in other cities other cities can try and replicate if it is possible in their own cities, so that at least we have even the cities moving at the same pace, though not necessarily at the same pace, that we do not have some cities succeeding while others are left completely grounded.
Thanks so much, Maggie, for that. And you've alluded to the importance of having a model of a successful city, And to a certain extent, I want to go back to Tokiana for this. Tokiana, if you are still with us, you alluded to the fact that the policy is being put together for the city of Antananarivo, and we will talk in terms of how that can be a model of what we can look at. How far are you in the process of developing this policy? And to what extent have you been able to also, there's something we call collaborative food system governance. To what extent have you been able to carry everyone along, be it consumers, be it every actor within the food value chain, and even academia, to ensure a collaborative governance of the food system? So I want you to reflect on the place you are at now, where you are at as far as developing that food policy is concerned. Is it to develop fully? Where are you? And in terms of collaborating to develop that policy, how did you do it? How did you do it, and what lessons can we learn from that? Tokiana? Tokiana, are you with us? If you are speaking, you are on mute. Tokiana, can you unmute yourself, please? Okay, while we're still waiting for Turkana, I think I can see that Henry has his hands up. So can you please go for it?
Well, Daniel,
Yeah.
thank you very much for the opportunity once again. I'll just do a categorizer, and I would say that in cities where, or I would say countries, and then cities where food policies are, they need to look at the governance and make sure that the governance in the cities has got the food policy in their manifestos, in their pledge to the people of the city. All governments have got the policy, the governance tools in their manifestos and charters to the countries. Having policies and not having the political will, as in governance, to relay and roll out policies is one shot and failure to realize sustainable food systems with regards to policy and governance. So one of the aspects, if I give the example, in my country, Uganda, and in the city, there are policies and frameworks for governance, but the investment in them is minimal. And we find that with low investment, there will be low governance in regards to deliberating with regards to food issues, to look at food inspection, enforcement, and also safeguarding consumers. Having said that, there is a need to bring in a culture where we have policies and governance structures to review them to meet the challenges of the times in our cities and many other upcoming urban setups. Once we remain with the non-productive and non-responsive policy and governance structures, these are going to affect issues to do with food in the cities, urban areas, and rural areas that form the back and forth of the food system. So it is very key that we have got a review culture to meet the demands so that we get sustainable, safe, and healthy food in the urban setups or in our nations with regards to policy and governance approaches. That's my categorizer for bringing about.
Thank you so much, Mary, for that. Yeah, you have actually highlighted a very important point in that political will is critical for implementing policies. So if there are policies that are on paper, how do we translate this to reality without political will? It becomes very problematic if there is no political will to work with the policies that we have. So I want to ask Scarlett, based on that, how were you able to generate political momentum or political will, as it were, for your work within the food space in the city of Ouagadougou? I mean, even some city officials may not, some city political office holders may not be interested in the food system or may not know a lot about this. How were you able to generate some political will and political momentum for the implementation of policies for support, political buy-in for support and things like that at Ouagadougou? Scarlett? Scarlett, are you with us? If you are speaking, you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. Okay, thank you for the question. It's like Mr. Henry said, our mayor and all the city council made a pledge in, I think it's four categories, including urban quality and green city. And in that pledge, they stated that they wanted to improve urban agriculture. And then it was easy for us technicians to find projects or to develop projects in tune with their vision. So it was very important for us to be led by that political will from the start. I know sometimes it changed. When the mayor changed, everything changed. He has other priorities and so on. But for now, for the 5 years of the I don't know the name in English, the mandate.
Tenure.
Maybe.
The tenure of the mayor.
Voilà, but yes, for the 5 years, we have a guideline and we have to follow through. And that's why we were able to put in place a lot of projects in regards to urban agriculture.
So thanks very much. I think it's important to have political office holders who are interested in the food system or improving the food system. But in some spaces where maybe some of them don't even know a lot about the food system or the implications of not paying attention to the food system. That is why it is important to also intervene. And I will share the experience that I think for some cities also that are in this group to also learn of our engagement with the city of Cape Town. So in planning for dialogues, we realized that there is a gap in terms of what food system stakeholders are doing in Cape Town and what government officials or political office holders know that people are doing, or even about the food system or their knowledge of the food system. So we felt it important, we thought it wise to intervene in that regard. And we came together to some food system working groups. We came together to draft a concept note. And then we tried to invite the mayoral committee members in. So there are mayoral committee members in charge of different departments, health. So we try to look at how does food system speaks to health and the water. And we brought all of this to the board. And so we sent letters to them, inviting them for a dialogue. We call it a high-level political dialogue. And if you go to the ICLE website, you will find some like a concept note there and things like that. And so we brought them on board and tried to, in that dialogue, we tried to share with them how we feel that the work that they are doing in the department connects with the food system, and how it is important to pay attention to the food system because it determines a lot of things. The mayoral committee, and I believe we were able to generate a little bit of political momentum. So that could be a way of working in trying to carry the political office holders along. We can basically try and organize a dialogue with them and try to make them see the importance of paying attention to the food system and how each department that they are overseeing aligns with the food system. You cannot talk about food system and not talk about waste. You cannot talk about food system and not talk about water. So Department of Water was brought in, Department of Handling Waste and Energy was brought in, Department handling different departments within even urban planning, because we talk about food sensitive urban planning. We brought them into the board and even agriculture and economic development. So that was how we worked, and I think it is a lesson that we can learn and bring forward to other cities that they can learn from on how to engage with political appointees. I don't know if we have any comments in the house in terms of generating political momentum or political will. Any, you can just go for it, raise your hand or speak to it. I can see that we have Leonidas Dusegemugu here, I think from Rwanda. Mr. Leonidas. Mr. Leonidas. Okay, great. Do we?
Hello, Mr. Daniel.
Yeah.
Mayor, I always just received bad news. His uncle passed away. He's probably trying to sort stuff about it right now. So that's the reason for his absence.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's understandable then. My regards to him. I believe we will be in touch with him. Thanks very much for that information. Thanks, Akron, for that information. Tukiana, are you with us? Are you still with us, Tukiana? Tukiana, if you're speaking, you are on mute. Okay, great. I thought I have, I don't know if anyone has any question or comment in terms of what we have discussed so far before I go on with my questions.
Excuse me. Sorry. Hello?
Yeah, hello.
If I can say something, I want to say something regarding partnerships. I think the first partners are within the city. Our first partner on this journey were major companies of our cities. The mayor called like an assembly and asked them to commit to plant 1 hectare of trees on the green belt per year for 5 years. And it all started like this. They committed, and today, because they committed, we have something to show off. And it was through their social responsibility, and they were glad to give back to their city. So I just wanted to share that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett, for that. I think I want now for that, for the way you felt the mayor handled it. And so in a way, we could see there that the mayor is like a champion of the food system cause. So sometimes even if the mayor is not really interested in the food system, or we must work as city officials, as food system stakeholders within our cities to make our politics, just like I said before, mayors, political appointees, to know the importance of paying attention to the food system, so that as much as possible, some of them can be champions of the cause of the food system in our cities. So I think I want to go back to you, Scarlett, also. Sharing experiences. You said you referred to a committee of municipality, and how sharing experiences was done there. I want you to shed more light on that. I mean, to talk more about that. What does that entail, and how did it work?
Okay. The new community of municipality was put in place I think, in the beginning of this year. And then from them, everything was discussed like they shared all the ideas regarding transportation, food system, waste management, rainfalls management, etc. So there are a lot of things that they share, and we just had to put a food system in it, and it worked because we are so intertwined that they feed us, we feed them, like we are intertwined. So it was important from the get-go to ensure that we were on the same level in that greater Ouagadougou. So the rest will be in French because I think, I'm sorry, my English has limitations. Sorry. Hello?
Sorry, Scarlett. I was saying that, yes, it is fine for you to speak in French. For other listeners here, I think you can also then just go to the interpretation button and click on English so that you can hear whatever Scarlett says in French, in English. So Scarlett, you can just speak in French if you're more comfortable speaking in French.
Alors, donc je disais donc que en fait la nouvelle communauté des communes, c'est une initiative qui date de longtemps, mais qui a pris réellement racine en début de cette année. Et à travers cette communauté des communes, on est en mesure de partager beaucoup de challenges, en fait, de défis qui nous concernent à la fois la ville de Ouagadougou et les 6 communes rurales avoisinantes. Parce que Ouagadougou n'a plus d'espace, en fait, en tant que tel, pour mener à bien certains de ces grands projets. Et c'est nécessaire, à la fois pour la ville de Ouagadougou que pour les villes avoisinantes, de pouvoir planifier ensemble, en fait, plusieurs de ces grands challenges du développement. Sorry. If, is it okay for translate? Hello?
Okay. Thanks very much, Scarlett. I believe you are done. So there's a little bit of coordination going on there. I don't know if anyone has a question for Scarlett or a question for us to reflect on in terms of issues within their their city. Otherwise, I have some questions that we can reflect on here. Okay, so if anyone is not going for it, I have a question here that says, how can cities facilitate inclusive food system governance processes? How can we in our cities facilitate inclusive food system governance processes? Can you take us for that? How can cities facilitate inclusive food system governance processes? Shall I call names? Tokiana, are you still with us? Can I have Sheila Sandamila? Sheila? Sheila Sanamila.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I was thinking if you could reflect on a question that says that how can cities promote inclusive food system governance? How can cities facilitate that? Inclusive food system governance processes. Can you respond to the question if you have any idea of how we can go about that?
Hello, Mr. Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm actually working with Shayla right now. And Mr. Daniel is asking, how can facilitating food system governance, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
System governance processes, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Sakura.
Yes, yes. I'm actually working with Shayla, and I can try to help.
Yes, please.
Because I think there's just a little bit of limitation in terms of.
Hello.
Yes, Sakura, you can respond.
I think Shayla can ask, and then I'll give my input.
Oh, all right, no problem. Sheila, you can go. Sheila, you can go for it then.
Hello. I'm asking you to repeat the question. I didn't understand it.
So I'm saying that I was asking that how do you think our cities can facilitate inclusive food system governance?
I think my network is not very good. I didn't understand yet.
Like, how can our cities facilitate inclusive food system governance?
I'm sorry, Mr. Daniel. There are just some communication limitation and stuff like that. There's communication barrier, but I can try to give my inputs on the behalf of Shayla because we're working together.
Yeah,
Hello?
please go ahead, Sakura.
Yes, I think our cities can facilitate inclusive food system governance process by being inclusive by sensibilizing and promoting, incorporating farmers, for instance, and all the less privileged people working on the agricultural sectors and so on. That's all that I would like to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that contribution. You noted that it will be important to incorporate all food system actors, especially the small scale actors, small scale farmers. And all that. I can see Carlos Alberto. Carlos Alberto. Carlos Alberto. So if I may call on Mr. Kimera Henry to please respond to that question. How can cities facilitate inclusive food system governance processes?
Thank you, Daniel. Just a quick offhead. Cities need to first basically do a stakeholder mapping, analyze and see how to engage, and see how everybody would, who is concerned with the city food is engaged. Then do the needs assessment and assess each player. What do they have? What are their capacities? And how can they deliver? So if there are gaps then see how best to bridge those gaps and enable everybody to play. If that is in policy, they do the policy mapping, they scrub the policies that cannot deliver, regulations. Look at the infrastructure. Can it deliver? If there are limited resources, then see how best those resources can go to the urgent areas that will bring about safe, nutritious, and healthy food to the urban dwellers, urban consumers. Most of the times, there's a challenge where people, I'll just use examples that we have in Uganda, where one would think putting up a market there and then, it will lead people to go into those markets. But some of the structures that are put up might not be affordable for some of the players in the food sector. And some of these structures end up to be white elephants, not accessible by the food dispensers, and the position is not good for the consumers to access those markets. Then the roadside markets continue existing because of poor planning and poor engagement of the respective stakeholders. Then the other aspect that I find is very key is continuous feedback to the consumers and other players, and building the trust and confidence so that when they communicate something to the stakeholders in the food system, they are respected and they take them for their word. So these timely information, response to challenges are going to be very key, and even supporting the traders, the processors, and the consumers to be active in the food systems. I find that these will facilitate the governors, the policymakers in the cities to deliver an effective and responsive city food systems that recognizes even the non-urban food producers to be key players in the whole value chain. Those are bits of my thoughts. Others can build on. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Mr. Henry, for that. Is there anyone who wants to contribute also to that question of how cities can facilitate inclusive food system governance? Maybe I should bring Barbara. Barbara is still with us to maybe reflect on our experiences of working in Toronto, and how can cities facilitate inclusive food system governance processes based on our experience of our work in Toronto.
Okay, I can share a little bit. One of the ways that we did this in Toronto was to establish a food policy council. And we had membership on this council of stakeholders all along the value chain in the food system. And the Toronto Food Policy Council is probably one of the oldest food policy councils. We're celebrating 30 years this year. And the city made this council a formal structure inside the city's governance mechanism. So in many ways, this assisted in the inclusive voices from multiple stakeholders. So we had farmers, we had processors, we had business owners, chefs and restaurant owners. We had a lot of civil society voices. And in many ways, this has been successful in raising the issues. The problem is that in some instances, the council would advocate for something, but not fully understand or have the resources to know where to intervene in the city structure. So I would suggest that in Toronto's situation, having a multi-stakeholder platform, there were 30 members of this council, was an excellent capacity building and information sharing and advocacy mechanism. I'm not so sure that it was always so successful in actually implementing policy. But I would say that it was a very good place to start in Toronto. I'm wondering if anybody else, if any other cities have something like a food policy council or a food charter, because sometimes the process of this is as important as the structure, if you know what I mean. That bringing people together around something can be quite useful. That's just my thoughts.
Absolutely, yeah. So the process is as important as the structure or as the document that is put together. So when we talk about food policy and all of that, the process of putting the policy together, whether it is inclusive enough, is as important, just like Barbara said, is as important as the policy itself and even implementation of the policy itself. So when the process has been flawed in terms of inclusion, then, I mean, probably the implementation also will be flawed by not basically also addressing the challenges of everyone on board. So thanks for that, Barbara. And so over to Barbara's question, do we have a city here on the call with a food council in Africa, an African city with a food council or a food charter? Or, yeah, maybe I should leave it for anyone to come in.
Yes, Ouagadougou have one, and it's a multi-structure council where we have the Department of Planning, the Department of Social and Health, and the department that works with growing plants and other stuff, and also the police, because we have a few issues regarding anarchic occupation when we deal with urban agriculture on the green belt.
Thanks so much, Scarlett, for your reflection about the multi-stakeholder platform in Ouagadougou. I believe it's very important. Such platforms are very important to ensure inclusion in our governance process of the food system. And so, do we also have anyone in the room with experience of that? Of a multi, I think Kimerari, you have something to say?
Yes, please. In Uganda, at different levels, they are kind of food policy. I would start with the national level. There is, though it is no longer functioning effectively, there is a Food and Nutrition Council where issues to do with food policy and so forth are discussed. Then, which is marked sectoral, interministerial, it brings in local government, it brings in civil society, brings in business, the private sector, academia, research. Then there is a food safety and a food hygiene advisory committee that is at the ministry level. And when we go to the local government, there are food and nutrition committees, which are formed at different districts and cities. But still, these go back to issues that were discussed earlier. Resources are hardly invested in them, or in case they are invested in them, they are so minimal that the committees cannot sit and deliberate effectively on issues to do with food policy in regards to safety, security, nutrition, and so forth. So the structures, the frameworks are in place, but their operationalization is challenged. And that's where the political will is key to appropriate resources for them to operate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I guess what is coming out strongly now is that even in some of our cities where structures are in place and frameworks are in place, sometimes put together by the city itself, implementation is challenging of policies and things that are on. And one of the major challenges is in terms of resourcing, and which basically also falls back to political will. And I think we have deliberated on how we can generate political will or political momentum for some of our activities. Scarlett is also putting it on the chat here that I agree with Mr. Henry regarding the lack of resources necessary to operate the committees. Well, so it's in a way it's a challenge that our cities go through in terms of, and maybe it's also one of the things we are discussing in another group, talking about investment opportunities. How can we fund the opportunities that the food system provides for us? But more particularly relevant for our group here, it's generation of political will or political momentum. And I think we have spoken about that. I want to go back to, I don't know if Tokiana now is with us. Tokiana, are you with us? Okay, so let me go back to Scarlett. In terms of ensuring alignment, and this speaks to multi-level governance. Governance, and I think Ari also spoke about what is happening at the national level, what is happening at the local level in terms of the local government. So Scarlett, I want to get back to you now. I think I've had this question for a while. I'm just holding on to it. When we talk about multi-level governance, we are talking about alignment in terms of governance processes between local governments and national governments. And I think you alluded to that in terms of what the national government is doing and maybe whether there is alignment with what the city of Ouagadougou is doing. So I want you to reflect on that. Are there alignment? And in terms of if there isn't enough alignment, what are you doing? What are you doing to ensure that what you are doing at the city level corresponds to what is happening. And I think you talked about coordination. What are you doing to make coordination better between national government and the city of Ouagadougou in terms of the food system or food policies?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I think in Burkina Faso, it's easier to see a bottom-up approach regarding to policies, meaning that yes, we have to obey to a national regulation, but we are, as a city, we are more innovative and more fast in doing things. It's normal because it's at the local, the local level. So what we do is advocate to the government structures that have something to say in the area we are working on, like the Ministry of Agriculture, Water, and Urban Planning. Also to help coordination, I think there are three steps. First, it's strengthen regulation, because though decentralization laws have given competencies and rights in some areas to the cities, there are loopholes that central governments can use to redeem these rights. So we have to state clearly the responsibility of each party. And for that, we have to sit together and then again put multi-stakeholder committee in place and vote a budget so that it can function properly. So first, regulation. Secondly, state clearly the responsibilities for each party. And third, a committee, and where each party will have to vote a budget for this committee to function, for that committee to function properly. Because in my country, there are plenty committees that doesn't function because there is no resources for them.
Oh, thanks very much for that. You highlighted three things for better coordination. Number one is to strengthen regulation. Number two is to state clearly the responsibilities for each party. I want to ask, what do you mean by each party? Do you mean each stakeholder or each actor?
Yes,
parties?
It's within the like the city and the government structures. It's not all the parties. It's not all the parties. Like it's in the relation with between the city and the government structure.
Okay. And the third one was what?
The third one was to put the committee in place, but to make each stakeholder vote for a budget so that it can function properly.
Thanks very much for that. I can see Sydney's hand up.
Hi, Daniel. I'm not sure if you are receiving my messages. I'm about to close the breakout rooms now. So everyone is going to be joining us in the main.
Yes, absolutely.
Just wanted to let you know.
Yes. It's fine. I got the messages. It's fine. You can. So colleagues, thanks very much for this session. It's been an engaging session. And I think we will be back at the plenary in less than 1 minute. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
looks like we're still slowly streaming in from the breakout rooms. I hope the discussions were intense. I hope there are interactions happening in the rooms. Can we get a thumbs up, or I could have added this to the discussion, but I didn't. Anyone wants to have one last point before we, if you feel you didn't say what you had to say before we broke out?
So Solofina, I was just hoping you can share with us the slides. You are too fast to graphs, and it seems that we've already been taken back to the main room. So I also shared my email address. If you can forward it, please.
Sure. No, thank you very much, Jim. I will share the slides as well. We didn't get a chance to complete our presentation, and we're also quite into the discussion. So I'll share the slides after this. Okay, so it looks like we're all back to the main room, and this is really the part where we get to share what was discussed in the different rooms. So in case you missed out and you weren't a part of it, this is where we get to understand what were some of the lessons shared, what were some of the outcomes, but then also importantly, what are some of the key questions that are being asked, you know, to acknowledge that we may not have the answers now, but it gives us points to think about and then to plan with moving forward when we're thinking about interventions in the food system. Aaron, your hand is raised. Do you have a contribution?
Yeah, hello. My name is Aaron. I'm from Dar es Salaam, University of Dar es Salaam. I'm a student. So I've been following this discussion in the other section. Actually the other group, and it just ended now. So they were just talking about all these initiatives and how they've been working in different cities to ensure that they bring these systems they stabilize these systems. And I absolutely think that's spot on. Congratulations for that. And I asked how can like students like me or other young people in like learning institutions can engage in this, because mostly people I see are from like city representatives. How can like students like me or other young people in general can engage or get involved? Because we can see like we have youth in leadership groups, we have like youth initiatives. We can join forces and probably educate people more on this stuff, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And I think you're in the right room. You're asking the right people. So I'll take it back to everyone present. How do we get more young people involved? And I know in our room we had started a bit of a discussion on that, you know, getting more young people involved or interested in different food system related initiatives. You know? So how do we get more young people involved in the food system at different levels of it? Do you have any responses?
Yeah, I think I share in our group before Aaron joined us. We have opportunity for students to either do internship with the Department of Agriculture for 3 months. So when they are in holidays, they come to us for the practical sections and also engage in helping us educate our farmers. So they create kind of already a link with the department. And then when some of them complete school, they are able to either get employment or be able to start something on their own.
Thank you very much, Ivy. And there's also Ricolto that shared, Ricolto in Arusha, some of the programs that is being done around youth entrepreneurship. Maybe Hannes, you can share on this as some of the ways that you're getting youth involved in the food system.
Yeah, my pleasure. So Ricolto has a larger food smart cities program, a multi-stakeholder process to feed the city in a more healthy and sustainable way. And one of the key components of that program is the generation of food process. where we invite youth to engage in a food business building process, basically in 3 stages. The first stage is a hackathon to fine-tune their business ideas, a 2-day workshop that happened in Arusha with about 200 youths. In the second stage, 75 of those went through to a 2-week boot camp to really fine-tune their business models and get trained on a lot of business skills and developing their business model canvas, on which we continued in the incubation phase with about 20, 25 finalists that their ideas got selected and were further developed to get funded, operational, and start having impact. And this program ran in Arusha last year, and we're currently preparing for replicating it in 2 cities in Uganda as well.
Thank you very much for that. And one other addition to that was issues around information around the opportunities available and how can these opportunities be maximized. I think if information is readily available to especially students in universities, in the different ways they can get involved along different levels of the food value chain or the food system, then it also sparks interest to the young people to be part of it. You know, it's a generation of information. People want to know, people want to access information to be able to make decisions. So I think as different actors, it's to be able to avail the information to different people that want to get involved. So thank you very much for the question, Aaron, and thank you for the responses provided. So now we're going to dive into our reporting back to plenary session. We'll start with G1. So who was the allocated person to respond to report back to plenary? So you have 10 minutes. And maybe before we go on, there's a question from Bale, but we have a maximum of 10 minutes to share what are some of the outcomes of the discussion and maybe how we can move forward with some of the outcomes. Bale, your hand is up. You have a question? No? Okay, I'll hand this over to Daniel, G1.
Thanks so much, Solofina. In my group, we had very fruitful engagement, and essentially we started by looking at 2 cities and what they're doing in terms of their food systems. And Scarlett Zongo presented to us on what the city of Ouagadougou is doing. And we had a presentation from Tokiana also about Antananarivo. So what came out strongly from the city of Ouagadougou is that they have a champion in their mayor in terms of food policy and governance. So essentially this basically also facilitates the process of governing the food system in the city of Ouagadougou. And the mayor, there is also like something I can call a charter at the city of Ouagadougou, which basically speaks to what they intend to do in the next 5 years in terms of their food system. And so this basically serves like a guiding document for intervention within the food system. And so the city also set up a committee or a community of municipality where in that community of municipality, they essentially, what they do is they share experiences of what the issues are within the food system and how they can tackle those issues. So essentially this speaks to engaging your stakeholders. So there is a very good emphasis on stakeholder engagement there. And this essentially has to relate also to the work that has been done, working in partnership with the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact to chart the way forward about the city of Ouagadougou's food system. And I think there is also a reflection about when we are deviating from what has been the plan, how can we then now bring it back? And we could see that in the city of Ouagadougou. There is a green belt area that has been allocated. I think it comprises of 1,065 hectares. but then it has suffered from encroachment. But now there is a process of rehabilitating and making sure that this is actually used for the purpose which they want to use it for. Also, there's also a focus on strong support from financial and technical partners. In other words, there is a mention that it is important for our cities to be able to leverage on technical partners. Sometimes in developing policies, policies that will work in the food system, at times the technical resources may not be resident in the city. And so how can the city work to achieve this is by leveraging on the partnership they have developed with technical partners. When we talk about technical partners, we talk about the United Nations agencies, organizations like ICLEI Africa, like the MUFFP, and others like that, to bring resources to the table in terms of technical resources to chart a way forward for the city. And so our cities must learn to do this. And in terms of coordination, it is important that cities also align their interests with what is going on at the national level, so that there is no confusion or clash of interest. When we spoke about Antananarivo, what we realized is that there is a policy that is being put together at Antananarivo, and what came to the fore was that it has been a collaborative process of ensuring that everyone participates in terms of coming together to draft this policy. And you can see that in the city region food system, the emphasis on the city region food system. And I think also the policy emphasizes multi-stakeholder engagement and multi-level governance in terms of what is happening at the city level, how it aligns with what is happening at the national level. And so our cities must pay attention to that. It also emphasizes capacity development. But one of the things that came out strongly is that a lot of the things that we talk about as interventions within the food policy, that the food policy speaks to, needs to be resourced. And if there is no political will to resource these interventions that we put together in the policy, or to actually implement the food policy in general, then it becomes problematic. And so the discussion now essentially also circled around how we can generate political will, how we can generate political momentum. And I reflected on our engagement with the city of Cape Town, in how we brought the city and how some CSOs or some food stakeholders came together to develop a concept note. And then we invited in political office holders, the mayoral committee members, to share with them how their work relates with the food system, so that in a bid to essentially generate political momentum. So it's an example, or is a lesson for cities to follow on how we can generate political will or political momentum in terms of inviting the political appointee into a space where we can dialogue about the challenges, about how their work aligns with the food system and how they can take it forward. I believe those kind of platforms are important to generate political momentum for food policy development and even implementation. And some other things we talk about is that we need to do policy mapping also to see where the gaps are in terms of whether it is being inclusive or not. And I think Barbara made a very important comment when he said that it starts from the process of developing these policies. If it is not inclusive enough, then it will become problematic in implementation. So essentially, what we agreed on was that we need to emphasize a system whereby in the development of policies governing the food systems, we make it inclusive enough so that when we are implementing it, it does not become challenging, and that inclusion also of implementation is not challenging. I think these are some of the things we talked about in our group. Multi-stakeholder platform cannot be overemphasized, where we deliberate on how we can ensure collaborative food system governance. I think I will leave it at that. I don't know if anyone wants to contribute. If we still have our time. Have we finished our 10 minutes? Solofina?
If there's a raised hand, we can spare half a minute. But it looks like we don't. So Daniel, I think you raised that important point of where there's political will and how do we garner political will? Eh? And yes, in some of the discussions that we had prior or even during the dialogues, it's what do municipalities care about? What is their mandate? It is related to issues around service provision. So then how do we look at food as a service delivery issue so that different sectors or different areas within the municipality can care to this, can attach some sort of deliverable to it, so that cities can care for it generally. So that's the sense we got in some of the discussion, how do we make municipalities care for food by really strongly linking it to issues around service, around access, because that is part of their mandate. But then also when you say that sometimes you need a champion, someone to help people see and understand the importance of food, and having a mayor as a champion in a way can drive this. And we've seen, for example, Mayor Manuel Araújo, who is a food champion, in lots of ways, and especially in linking food and other aspects of planning, food and biodiversity, and food and issues around accessibility. So really championing food, but then also linking food to mandates that municipalities do care about, but they also want to achieve. Thank you very much for that, Daniel. So I'll hand this over to group 2, to G2 on participation and stakeholder engagement.
Afternoon, everyone. Good day. So in our discussion, we spoke a lot about the different ways some of the cities that had joined us were managing or trying to manage stakeholder engagement and partnerships. So we spoke more about lots of examples that are happening in different cities. So some were around creating platforms or committees or councils that involve different actors across various, both like government, private, and kind of on the farming level involvement in the cities, and encouraging these different kinds of these different spaces in which to exchange information. So both from the point of view of city officials who manage the overall system, learning from the people who are on the ground, either in the production or the growing stage, to the production of the food if it needs to change form, to the people who are selling, at the interface level between the producers and the people who purchase the food. From to other spaces where we allow for sharing of information and connecting people, to allow public-private partnerships or just exchange between different parts of the system, the food system, in order to improve the efficiency or the functioning of the food system. There were examples of how cities are mapping both the user and the flow, and how the collection of data in terms of managing or like monitoring pricing of food in a city is very important, and the role that can have in both helping the higher level government and the different levels to improve the food system. So we discussed a lot about the problems around middlemen, in inverted commas, who are setting the prices for food, and how government level has, in some cases, little control of this, but setting up different ways in which we can encourage food to be accessible at a better price for like the general community. Then there were some comparisons between like land being available for food production, both in the city and kind of close to it. And from the different examples, there was the importance of ensuring that there are these agreements that don't take farming space or urban farming space and kind of use it for development, and how to protect that and how to improve those relationships so that we encourage the preservation of farming land and urban farming space. Then there was a link, there was the question around how to involve more students, and there was a good example from Accra where the municipality takes on people as part of an internship program between 3 months and 1 year to allow for people to learn the practical aspects of what they've been taught theoretically. So as a good way to try to involve more youth. There was also some points around involving university and research level, like master's students or even honor students, allowing them to tackle some of the research problems that have been identified in cities, to connect, to allow the city to gain that information through the use of students who are doing it through surveys or any other process that they're able to improve the food systems. Yeah, so and then so those are kind of like the main kind of, we also spoke a little bit about the geopolitical and relationship with food, and how if food is being imported from a different country, how those kinds of relationships are difficult to fully like understand, or there's a lot of uncertainty around, for example, if climate change affects another country that you're importing foods growth patterns, and how that affects your supply chain. So a need for a better understanding in the food space was also talked about in quite a lot of depth. But yeah, so I think that's the gist of what we were talking about, with a lot of examples about what different cities are doing in the space to help improve the food system in general.
Thank you very much, Lorraine, for that. Do we have an addition from someone who was in G2, or do you have a point of clarification from someone who was in G2? And I'd also like to encourage that if the resources that were shared during the breakout rooms, please feel free to share the resources again so that we can have different people access these resources that were shared in the smaller breakout rooms. All right, now thank you very much, Lorraine, for that. And so I will go to G3, so which was around investment opportunities in Africa's urban food systems. And so we did have such rich discussions, and we had participants from Dodoma, from Mbale, from Gulu, from Kisumu, and then also from South Africa, as well as, and these were representing diverse organizations. You know, we had Peter presenting from Ricolto, we had Stella sharing from Dodoma, as well as other participants that were part of our group. And in a way, this brought about very rich contributions to the discussions. Though importantly, what was highlighted was the issues around areas for investment or for intervention in the food system. I think Peter from Ricolto noted issues around market, investment in market infrastructure, because this can link back to the farmers, but then also to the consumers, and shared the experiences around the Smart Stalls project that's being implemented in Mbale, which is in Uganda. So, and of course, this is being done in partnership with the municipality there. Though he notes, I think in the discussion, it was noted that, you know, sometimes implementation is difficult when you don't even have a policy to start working with. You know, and if some of these basics or the groundwork is in place to support different initiatives, then in a way, this can help them move faster. And this can be policies related to, for example, food safety and food handling, relating to relating to access, for example, access to market infrastructures, as well as administration of the market infrastructure. So I think markets were really highlighted as important collection points, important points for understanding what the food system is like, for understanding what consumers want, but then for also linking back to the small scale farmers or to the different farmers that feed the markets. And of course, also issues about the kind of infrastructure, how market infrastructure is laid out, because we saw that there was a number of market projects that were rolled out, for example, in Uganda, but there are issues around accessibility to the market in terms of the traders. They are very expensive, but then also the consumers that were used to easily accessing food. You know, they find it hard to access the food in these very enclosed and very formally set up markets. So how can we better improve access? And I think Richard discussed issues, Peter discussed issues around the smart stores that looks at issues around consumer preference and how we can, so these are safer, they're cleaner, but then also they offer a better price for the trader, but then also the consumer who is looking for a high quality product. And then also issues around infrastructure related investment that could minimize food loss. And of course, as it's being emphasized, this cannot be done alone by cities. Think Lamek from Lilongwe also shared that, you know, in terms of getting finance for infrastructure, so this is being done in partnership, for example, with external donors, but then also the market participants or the market traders through savings and credit society. So these are also sources of finance, and they can be collected in a very blended way, where we have the market or the market producers, the market sellers in partnership with support from the municipality, but then also there's support from donor organizations. And in a way, it creates a blended bucket or a blended basket of finance that can be used for different development projects. Then issues around, I think, focusing also on the softer side of investment of intervention was also emphasized, and these are issues around maintenance of upgrading, especially markets or other infrastructure, because you find that sometimes after projects are implemented, 5 years down the road, you know, there are issues around food safety within the markets because the infrastructure is degenerating. So as we are investing in the infrastructure itself, we should also look at the long-term maintenance and continuity of the programs that are being implemented. So I think that was also a good side of looking at interventions, both that focus on the hard infrastructure, but then also the mindset and what is going to support continuity of whatever has been invested in. And he also noted issues around, and I think another issue that strongly came out was around getting youth involved. And I can hear that this has been also brought up in another group. How do we get more young people involved across the food value chain? And I think the question comes back to us, different stakeholders, as NGOs, as research organizations, as municipalities. How are we empowering young people to be a part of the food system? And so I think, as Hannes shared from recall to some of the work they're doing in Arusha around entrepreneurship programs and projects that are helping youth think creatively around what are the opportunities around food and the ideas they do have around these, and entering this into a hackathon kind of engagement or arrangement, and then you have the best ideas that win, and then they're offered the support that they require. So, and then we also did have some sharing around from Kisumu, issues around also transformation of rural enterprise and youth. So this is also still focusing on young people, getting young people involved in the food system. And this can be supported at different levels, from a policy level, but then also providing the information on what opportunities are available and what linkages are available in the food system, and what do young people need to be able to be a part of the food system at different levels of that. And then, of course, a little bit was touched on land reform, how cities can support different actors in access to urban land for food-related activities. You know, urban land is expensive, and this was brought up examples in Cape Town, as well as other cities like Entebbe, where access to land is almost impossible due to the cost. So what are those innovative ways, there are parcels of land that are owned by the city. So how can the city work on initiatives and projects that allow access to even small parcels of land that are leased to different people at different points in time? So that sort of initiative can also help to drive more participation along the food system. And I think also issues around a landscape approach or how to sustainably grow food in urban areas, looking at nature-based solutions, issues around the landscape approach. And yeah, so those were the key issues around investment. But if you do have other additions to these, please do feel free to add them in the chat. But that was what was identified by some of the participants in our discussion group. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions or additions before I hand this over to Paul to close off the session? Please feel free to raise your hand if you have additions, if you have questions, and if there are linkages that you think people will benefit from, please share them in the chat. So over to you, Kimera Henry.
Thank you very much, and it is quite inspiring and gratifying that the discussions have been rich, and they are really cross-cutting, because when you listen into all the questions, all the discussions, they make a very good and a rich menu from which to pick up and really energize urban foods or city foods and systems. I would like to kind of bring in the Uganda experience and can of worms with regards to youth involvement, where discussions continuously say youth don't want to go into agriculture, but most of them leave agriculture and come into other trades. And where the discussion always goes that youth don't want to get dirty, but youth get dirty when they go into scrap, garbage collection and sorting, and they earn wages. So the aspect of earning, getting a wage, an income out of agriculture will be a very key aspect. The issue of youth agriculture providing them an income at every level will play a major role. I'll use Uganda as an example, where the youth, irrespective of their education, they have gone into motorcycle riding to provide transport services. They are in position to go for financial services because they can make a business plan. They know what they earn during the day, and they can aggregate it at the end of the month. Can we build on that and do that to agriculture? And this will be in a position to attract them to go and engage in agriculture at a certain level. I don't say that every youth has run away from agriculture from that, but where they don't own land, they will be assured of hiring land to produce. However small acreage it is, with good technologies, they will know they are getting a return. So that is something that we need to do with all these ICTs, the technology infrastructures, using the apps to attract the youth to deliver what they grow from wherever they are to come into agriculture and be part, because they're the biggest consumers in the other aspect. We need to put it to them, you're the biggest consumers, because you take 70% of the population nationally and even in the urban centers. So that is the kind of worms that I thought bringing in, that at times we leave on the side what attracts the youth to what they are doing, irrespective of their professions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, really touching upon how can we make agriculture, but then also other activities around food profitable to the youth and attractive as well. So thank you. Do you have any other addition, questions or comment before I can hand this over to Paul to round up the discussions? Okay, as I'm seeing no questions or no hand raised, over to you, Paul.
Can you hear me, Solo?
Yes, May, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yes, this is Manuel de Araujo from the city of Kilimane. I just want to chip in and to say how happy I am. I've been following the exchanges, and I was in group 2 where very interesting examples were shared. And as my predecessor said, I mean, there are different entry points, but we can always use food either to deal with issues about energy, issues about nutrition, about agriculture, about climate change, about environment. Of course, we can go the way we want, but always have food as an entry point. And Kilimane City got, I mean, we are very happy because we have been selected to be part of the first 6 cities on the FAO Green Cities initiatives. And even today we had a follow-up meeting. So we are very happy to be part of the first leap of municipalities working for the Green City University, Green City Initiative, which brings together food policy, urban planning to one table. But so we wanted also to publicize that initiative in the sense that I think that more cities will be invited or should participate to make it really like a flag. We've been also meeting under the UN conference that will take place, UN food conference that will take place in later in the year, I think from October or November this year. So the participation of cities is very important because we want to have our voice heard at the table, at the international scene. So I would like to invite all stakeholders from universities, NGOs, but mainly from the cities to engage into this process so that our voice can be stronger and all these issues that were raised in the 3 groups could come to the table, to the forefront and be used to strengthen our voice. Thank you very much. So.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor, for that strong closing. And you've been with us on this journey of trying to elevate the voices of cities, right from the dialogue that we held in Kilimane and getting all the stakeholders involved in the dialogue and sharing really what are some of those key opportunities and challenges that Kilimane is facing. And you've been also involved in different projects trying to link food and biodiversity and attract really different levels of investment across the food system in Kilimane. So we just want to commend you for being a champion and then for also always sharing some of the initiatives that you're doing with everyone else. So thank you very much. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Olafina, and thanks everyone for staying through a 3-hour workshop in our unique time period. I wish to re-emphasize what has been said already, that these have been deep and interesting conversations. And these types of conversations always remind me that some of the best learnings that we have are between city officers, between food system practitioners, who are grappling with these themes and trying them out and experimenting. And so one of the main roles of ICLEI is to facilitate this type of connectivity. And what's always wonderful is to see how some cities are showing amazing innovations in one area, but have gaps in others, where other cities are innovating to fill those gaps, and trying to do a bit of that puzzling together of how cities can help each other develop their food policies reflect on implementation projects, I think is important. Given that this is the second African City Food Month, a lot of the themes that have been discussed today feel very familiar. And ICLEI's been working in food for 3 years now, quite strongly. And so if I can articulate a hope, is that in the next African City Food Month, we can share what activities we've undertaken that are nudging some of these themes in a different direction. I'd be very excited to see. So your thoughts on how we can make African City Food Month a platform to check in on activities year on year, and how to take, again, from this conversation, action points that we can try out, and letting us know where ICLEI or partners, specifically those in cities, can help make that extra step, I think is really important. So thank you again so much for your time. Please do continue to participate in the events related to African City Food Month, as well as the UN Food System Summit events. This really has turned into a year for food, with a lot of people having a moment to share their positions and share their perspectives. And as Mayor Rajo has just said, we really do need the voice of cities to come through strongly. So we continue to work on that. And hopefully these key points from today's meeting, as well as the dialogues, get emphasized strongly. So thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you have a splendid rest of your day and rest of the month with us.